Hello, everybody. Oh my gosh, episode 47, and it's election day. We just have to acknowledge that's what's happening in the world. But in our tiny little world here, episode 47 of the Embodied Business Inspired Brain podcast with Ann Bishop and myself, Chantel Lopez, we are talking about something really, really, really rad, which is Mental Health Mondays. And we want to share with you today how we have been leading more and more small businesses and leaders in integrating nervous system practices, particularly in women-led entrepreneurial systems. So that is kind of a mouthful and a big topic, but we're going to jump off with this thing that we've been doing in our business for quite some time now called Mental Health Mondays. So stay tuned for that. But first, we're going to do a check-in. What's in process, what's in progress. Like there's a lot going on in my mind right now, I think, especially because of the election. And I've been talking a lot about election anxiety from the nervous system perspective and dysregulation. And Anne, you've been talking about it as well. So should be a juicy one today. What's in process and progress for you?
All right. So I would say as a women-led entrepreneur or as a woman entrepreneur who is in the season of life where I have children, having Halloween and then fall back and then the election all within less than a week, which happened within this year of 2024, has been, I would say, just a little, just you kind of feel like you're just toggling back and forth. You're getting a little whipsawed. So we had I would say, really successful Halloween this year, and then I was really happy because within our company we actually spoke about like, hey, sometimes when we have a change in the calendar, like the time change, sometimes that makes, if you're a woman and you're the caretaker within your home, it can just be a little bit wonky. And so today is a perfect example of that. My children were up at 5:30 a.m. and we don't usually get up that early. We usually get up at 7:30. Well, no, that's not true. We usually get up at 6:30. So, it's just, I'm a little bit fatigued today, but that's fine. And it's election day, but I've already voted. And it's early in the morning that we're recording this as well. So if you're obviously be listening to this after today. Yeah. And so it's a time, I think of it like this liminal moment, like we just, especially like we don't know, and just entering the day. So I think what's in progress and what's in process is just, I am thankful that I had the psychological safety within my business to say like, hey, it'll be a little interesting when the time shifts. There's always a little bit of a spurt that happens, and it gets less as my children get older, but it still happened. So
Yeah. It's interesting because this is a conversation we've been having and about what projecting into the future, the things that are potentially dysregulating for us individually and then as a team and within our business and how we respond and planning for that. So we are doing this really cool thing this week. What are we calling it? We have a meeting. I'm probably jumping ahead, but this is an example of how our business, Polyvagal Informed, we have a meeting,
and it's called Whole Health Holiday Meeting.
Yeah. So we're literally going to just sit down for an hour together and talk about what is the schedule, what's the rhythm, what's the new rhythm, so we can start to, or the rhythm for the holidays, because we tend to take 2 weeks off in December, and that it creates a big shift in the way November has to go in the first part of December. So yeah, this is just one of the ways in which we're kind of forecasting, not just like schedules and marketing and that kind of thing, or revenue, but how are we responding individually and collectively from a nervous system perspective. So I'm really excited about that. And I think this just all comes from what we're going to be talking about in this episode, which is the moment we decided to institute Mental Health Mondays, which, as most good things do, they come out of necessity. So we'll get into that a little bit. I think I'm just like overall really still kind of in the same places from our last episode, which is it's like not even like a commitment so much now as it is like I was going to say a calling. It's just like an urge to seek joy and to really like just be in this place where I'm not just intellectually thinking about it or conceptually thinking about joy seeking behavior and how that impacts the way I kind of flow with and dance with all of the things that are dysregulating in life. But I find that I think at least I'm turning a corner where it's the behavior change is coming. Like I'm really tasting that. Like I literally am not orienting to my life, myself, and the world in the same way that I used to. And I think it's because of the nervous system practices that we do, and because we are so actively engaged in explicitly implementing, right? There is this tangible quality for us as a polyvagal informed business as to like, does this, like having this alignment. So that's really impacting me personally. And a great example is we had our mental health Monday yesterday. So it's a Tuesday today. We have a 30-minute meeting and we'll tell you more about this. And it was great. And I was so lit up and I had such a great morning. And then I decided I had to, like, I had this chunk of time was going to be the only time I could go to the DMV. If you live in California, you know the DMV is just a shit show. It's a circus. And I have a new motorcycle, which I've actually decided I'm going to sell. So I need to get it registered. I bought it in Colorado, rode it home to California. Need to get it registered so I can get the title and I can sell it because it's just not the right bike for me. And you can't make appointments at the California DMV anymore for registration. You cannot. They want you to do it all online, and if you can't just do it online, if it's not just a renewal, you have to go in and you cannot make an appointment. They used to have this thing called, like, you can get in line from home and it would give you a number, and then it would ping you and let you know when your number was getting close. Then you could just go down. That wasn't working yesterday. I spent 5 hours in the DMV. 5 hours, like the entire meatiest chunk of my day, I stood standing up trying to work on my laptop in the DMV. It was not so much like, I mean, there was definitely dysregulation, but I was prepared. So I had, brought a big bottle of water, I brought my computer. I knew I was going to be there for a long time, but I won't get into the details. But it was one thing one kind of just totally random like roadblock after the other. And I left there still without my registration and my plates due to a glitch. I mean, I'll tell you the whole story someday, Anne. But what I realized was like, yes, I was hungry and I was a little cranky and I was a little annoyed, but I got home and I was just like, it's so interesting because I poured myself a glass of wine. I made myself a sandwich and I was like, I'm really just super enjoying this glass of wine and this sandwich. And I'm going to sit down and watch a show and do some more work. And it's like, oh, doesn't have a hold on me. So that really feels different for me. And if you listen to our previous episode 46, I talked a bit about that. So that's what's in process and progress for me. Being able to hold my shit together. And not even that, like actually just not be so phased by something as like a total absolute waste of time, which would usually really, really, really set me off and just make the rest of the day, yucky. But it wasn't like that. So I'm really grateful. Okay. So we want to use this thing we do in our business as an example of, as I said before, just the really cool work that we've been doing to support other leaders and coaches and small businesses in bringing in, like, seeing their business through the nervous system lens. And so maybe 2 months ago now, we started Mental Health Mondays. And I would say, like, for me, it just really came out of like, uh, I was just like, I can't just go, I can't go into the day like this. I can't go into the week like this. Like, whatever the circumstances were, I don't quite remember now, but it definitely felt like, when we talk about the nervous system, there's a principle in the polyvagal theory which is called hierarchy. And hierarchy is that we can track in a progressive and predictable way the different states that the nervous system moves through, from safety, that ventral vagal influence where we're connected, we're socially engaged, we're kind of optimized, we have, good homeostasis, like things are functioning well physiologically, our brains are working well, to when we start to feel threatened, we have some experience of a lack of safety, we begin mobilized, which is fight or flight. And that takes on lots of different shapes and flavors. It's a pretty long progressive line for most of us, that mobilized fight or flight state of the sympathetic influence in the nervous system. And then at the end of that is the dorsal vagal influence, which is immobilization, which is where we start to feel like disconnected, disassociated, like pulling away, shutting down. And I think that's not an experience I have very often. But I think on this particular Monday, I was just like, I can't. I can't. I just can't. Like, I have got to have a breath. I've got to have a break. I need deep work. I need no pressure to be able to orient myself to what needs to happen both at home and in the business this week. And I think I basically I just like slacked it in, and I was like, listen, I'm off today. I'm not attending meetings. I'm going to go on a motorcycle ride. Like, I need a day. And I think we had a meeting, right, on Mondays, like our ops
Yeah, we
meeting.
had an
Yeah, our
ops
team
meeting.
meeting.
And the goal of that ops meeting on Monday, which I think is relatively common, I imagine for most small businesses, is just to kind of orient yourself around the week, like what needs to be attended to operationally wise, because we have an amazing ops member on our team. She's phenomenal, Haley.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's like, okay, so just to kind of get things going, because I think the reason behind that is like, well, once then you can, orient your day or your whole week, and you're
You got to
prepared for
flush
the
it out.
week,
Yeah,
right? It's sort of like that's the way
totally.
to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. And so what happened kind of in the midst of this conversation was like, well, should we shift the Monday meeting to Tuesday? And then what was so interesting, and you'll have to tell it from your side, Anne, because my suggestion was, let's move the Monday meeting to Tuesday this week because I'm not going to be there. Like, you guys can certainly meet, but I'm not going to show up. So the alternative is, can we meet on Tuesday? And then we're kind of working with some other time shifts and whatnot. And then you guys, I think, just misunderstood me in a way. And we were like, okay, all of a sudden, no meeting on Monday. We're going to have it now on Tuesday. So there was just this interesting, like, process that we went through. And I don't know, you tell it from your side, Anne. Like, what was it like for you? Like, when we started to, I don't even know who said Mental Health Monday for the first time. Was it you or Haley? Because that wasn't like, again, this came out of like a necessity for me to like take a breath, well, not out of some intellectual like planning to create.
Right. No, it was an organic experience, and it
Yeah.
was a little like bumpy and a little sloppy until we landed on it, which is fine.
Totally. Yeah.
So I don't think I came up with Mental Health Mondays. I don't think I came up with that name.
It
So
must have been Haley.
must have been Haley. And so, yeah, so we said, okay, well, let's spend Mondays doing deep work, and then we'll do ops meetings on Tuesday. And we also had a marketing support person on our team named Kate, and that was worked really well for her as well. And so we just all, we're open to shifting the day, and then we did that, and we started having ops meeting on Tuesdays, but then that didn't feel quite right either.
Yeah, it didn't feel right to not connect. And so then what I remember is like it started to just come to the surface like, whoa, taking Mondays off is like really awesome. But we're not taking it off, right? So we've just reoriented how we're using Monday to enter the week, both to nurture us and to nurture the business. And so Haley came up with Mental Health Mondays. I was like, well, fuck yeah, I'm totally in. Like, let's do this. Like, let's make it a thing. Like, if everybody is having this experience, how can we actually implement it as a strategy? And so we made a couple of shifts. We decided we really wanted to be together on a Monday, like to set the tone to support each other. But we changed the intention of those Monday morning meetings, and we only meet for 30 minutes, and we meet at 8:30, so it's pretty early. Most of us are doing kid drop off on Monday mornings, and then we come back, and mostly we're still in our pajamas and sipping our coffee, and it's just a check-in. It's like how was the weekend? What did you do? Are you rested? How are you entering Monday? We talk about, are there any roadblocks to having your mental health Monday? Like, is there anything operationally? Is there any kind of hanging thing that needs to be checked or taken care of? So we can all just like rest into this generative space of Mondays, whether we're doing self care or deep work or a combination, or we're working on a project that it's just too hard to focus on during the week. Like, we all make different choices. And then we share what the intention is. Like, each of us will have a focus or an intention for the day, and we share that. And then we go on our way. And one of the strategies that right away I made is a mental health Monday, like not like a checklist, but like, here are things we can do. So we have this beautiful, PDF that we created. And it's just like, here are the things we can lean into to support ourselves. Lots of different things in terms of like doing something different, right? Not just doing the same thing that you always do. I loved yesterday, and you said, like, I already have my yoga mat rolled out. Like, I know that I want to spend the day being more connected into my body. And it's like just really honoring and listening to what we need is so special. And making that happen on a Monday has been
Mhm.
incredibly valuable.
Yes, I think, like, that setting the tone for Monday is really helpful. And then again, our operations support, Haley, said, "Oh, have you ever heard of the Sunday Scaries?" And I was like, I mean, I've heard of it. I've even read articles about people like and I've heard of the concept of like, by Sunday evening, there's
Yeah,
sort
you're
of a
super
little this
anxious.
dread, you
Yeah.
have to start the work week. And for me, and like I've totally experienced that off and on throughout my life,
Yeah.
depending on like what's going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, as an entrepreneur, is like, or just all the things that are coming up for the week. And I would say that when I have that feeling, because the feeling will still come up, I'll be like, oh, but tomorrow our business is supporting our well-being.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like how
Yeah.
nice is that?
Yeah. It's so
So
soothing. It really
yeah.
is. I mean, even like waking up, I was describing my waking up process yesterday, like just being able to like wake up and then kind of doze back off and then wake up and then doze back off. And without that, like that weight of like, you know, I've got so much work I've got to get done. And the anxiousness of like the tasking, it really just changes. It changes the whole week, really, really, truly changes the whole week. Yeah. So this has just been, a really accidental and
Yeah.
powerful way
Yeah.
um, that we have continued to really shape our business both internally and outwardly in terms of our brand, but also specifically internally as the way we are a team and the way we communicate, the way we organize and plan around honoring our nervous system and listening. And so we wanted to share a little bit more about what this looks like, and what this process has been for us, and some of the ways maybe you can imagine starting to integrate this kind of tone or lens to shape your business as well. So I think we have never really kind of traced the path of like, well, how did we, I think it was probably like a year ago, and you tend to have like kind of more of a mind for this. And I think you said at some point, like, oh, we are a polyvagal informed business or a nervous system informed business. And for me, I don't think like that. It's just like I just am doing what I'm doing and it's happening. And then it's like, oh, I don't even realize sometimes. So again, I think for us, it's been a very organic process. And now it's very intentional. Most of the things, right? Now we're like intentionally crafting and also, as I said, in the process of helping others do the same thing. But, it just started for me like a decade ago when I first learned about the polyvagal theory. And then I started teaching nervous system strategies and interventions within my coaching and my movement work. And then we started to bring it into our embodied course creation program as a way of creating psychologically safe containers. So at that point, about 4 years ago, we were hearing a lot about the concept of psychological safety. And we have taken we see that concept through a slightly different lens, I think, than most people. Psychological safety is really a matter of like, how do we make a group of people feel, heard and seen? How do we create the environment and the culture for people to interact and feel like they have a voice? But for us, psychological safety has always really been like, how do we create a safe environment for the nervous system, which goes way beyond the intellectual kind of psychological concept of this, right? It's like really looking at the how does our nervous system respond? How are we co-regulating with others? What can we impact in the inside of ourselves, outside in the environment, and then how do we curate opportunities between each other, right? So we always talk about inside, outside, and between. So originally, we were bringing this work into Anne's expertise of curriculum design, and we have this brain-based and body-based curriculum design approach that we've crafted. And so we started to put it in there, right? We started to put it into our curriculum. And then it just naturally, we would lead all of our delivery calls with nervous system work. And then we started leading all of our team calls with nervous system work. And so it's just been, yeah, just this very organic process. And then, Anne, you talk a lot about for you, the value of having the language of the nervous system. Can you talk a little bit about how that's changed the way you communicate or the way that you engage in the business or just with others?
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely love biology. Um, I had a and the nervous system is essentially applying the study of human biology to how we run business. So, or your life, however, but in this application towards business. So for me, like I would say that because I love anatomy, physiology, because I studied that within my bachelor's program, leaning into the concept of understanding why biology makes a difference in our lives. And because I do think that this they call it Descartes' error, where he really said, there's a difference, the line, there's a binary between the
Mhm.
body and the mind, and
Mhm.
how that has, I think, really malinformed us in a poor way over many years, because there was almost a sense of like the mind has power over the body. And then, how do we create that power over the body through the mind? And there can be a place for that, absolutely.
Yeah, well, it's not true, you know?
Yeah, yeah. But at the same time, I think, to me, it's like science is finally catching up with the ability to measure the body and to look at, well, if your heart rate, like, I had a friend who shared with me, she works with young, with teenagers, and she works with people and children, and she's I believe she's an MFT, so marriage family therapist. And we were having a girls' brunch, and she goes, it was on a Saturday, and she goes, "Oh, I have to leave. My client, I've got to meet with my client on a Saturday." And we said, "Okay." And she goes, "Yeah, she just got arrested the other day. And so I
Oh,
have to have a conversation with, support her somehow." And I was like, wow, I wonder how helpful it would be for young people to maybe have a biological reading on their body to say, like, hey, you're starting to really spiral, because
mm,
we don't know if that would make a difference, but I'm curious. Like, if she had a heart rate monitor on and she knew how to read it, could the heart rate monitor have said, you're in a state of extreme dysregulation, and you might then exhibit behavior that, could cause you to get arrested or something. I just was sort of making that thought, because some people really struggle, and at that age your prefrontal cortex is not,
fully developed.
there yet. It's not developed until you're about in your mid 20s. So
Mhm.
just makes me think, like, different people in different seasons of their life, whether you're young or whether you have some sort of illness, I think could very well benefit from understanding what their biology is telling them.
Mhm.
Because I do think that there's not a lot of conversation about listening to your body.
Yeah.
Uh, and so, or it's so for me, getting back to the answer to your question, I like this because it's a language and it's a framework and it's a system that I can talk about my body, my feelings, our bodies together, our feelings together as a business within a framework that makes sense. And to me, making sense always means it goes back to biology. So that's a little bit of my bias, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the value in that is that it means that we do have a framework within which we can talk about things that in the past, so a scientifically based, research driven framework that in the past would be like too soft, too emotional, like talking about, of course there's more and more talk about emotional intelligence and emotional regulation, but still that area of work is kind of devoid of like, well, what's that? How is that linked to what your physiology is telling you and how it's driving how you're feeling and your ability to regulate your emotions? So I think this, like being grounded in science and having this framework is it's so wonderful because we now have a way to look at it and to talk about it and to create interventions or to employ strategies within our systems in our businesses that address when we're feeling overwhelmed and when we're feeling anxious and when we're feeling not psychologically safe. So that's from my perspective like so powerful, right? Because it takes it out of the woo woo, like out of this like kind of touchy feely, just conceptual, it's all about intuition, soft skills, uh, you know, area and says, no, actually it's science. And there are ways to be objective about how to measure dysregulation, to your point, Anne, about heart rate variability. Yeah, it's really, I mean, I just always think, and I always say, like, the power this work has on every domain and every human experience is pretty tremendous, right? Because you can't escape that you have a nervous system, and you can't escape that it is constantly sending you messages and informing your behavior, whether that's an autonomic response that's driving behavior that was kind of rooted in your young life, your childhood, or any part of your life, or if it's something that you're responding to for the first time. And at this stage of the game, we're not responding to many things for the first time, right? It's all based on our previous experiences. So let's go ahead and take a turn toward wrapping things up and talk a little bit about some of the ways in which we've seen this kind of polyvagal informed system strategy play out and be helpful for us in our business and for others in their business. So we wanted to make sure that you could walk away from listening today with like a clear sense of like, well, what are the areas of my business that this could potentially impact? So we've talked about the way you run team meetings, right? So entering or grounding team meetings in some kind of nervous system regulation practice, which can be super simple as just doing a little body scan. Or a colleague of mine shared with me a couple years ago this mindful minute, where you literally just take 1 minute to like be present. You can do box breathing. There's just so many things, right? It doesn't have to be complicated. And then, as a team potentially, and we've done some of this where we come in and we present the science. So there's an understanding of what it means to be involved in nervous system work or to see your work through the nervous system lens. We share the science behind the polyvagal theory, and then we talk about, how to really become aware. So in our nervous system work, we really follow kind of a three pillar path, which is the first thing is to create awareness or develop awareness. And in that, we each are developing awareness of how our nervous system uniquely responds to stimuli in the world and stimuli inside of ourselves. And so that's the first part, really, of giving us language. And what I really believe is when you develop awareness of your nervous system and you can create that space between, oh, this is my biology sending me information. Oh, and now I'm having this emotional experience. Oh, and now I'm having this thinking experience. Or maybe we become aware of our thinking first, like it doesn't really matter. But it all of a sudden gives us enough space that we can change the way that we behave, right? We can start to be more responsive in an accurate way, in a way that feels aligned with who we are, trying to be as humans and as business leaders, rather than just letting our nervous system kind of put the foot on, have its foot on the gas, driving us all over the place based on our habitual patterns. So developing awareness is always the first step. And then learning how to shift, right? Learning how to read the signals, and then what are the interventions, what are the tools and strategies. Ultimately, the third pillar is nurturing change. So we're nurturing change over the long run. And I'm going to stop there for a moment and just let you kind of dive in here with any last thoughts about specifically in a business, where can nervous system work be implemented or valuable?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of times in business, you have to keep making shifts and changes, and change can be challenging. It's like a behavior change. So, we have lots of behavior change that you have to do in business.
Hmm.
And so for me, understanding the nervous system work has really allowed me to say, okay, well, what behavior changes do I need to make in my business that I have with Chantel? Or like, when I say my business, I mean like in my business within the business. You know, like like what behavior changes do I need to make so that the business runs better or is doing better or is changing or is shifting? What behavior changes does the team need to make? You know, and so for me, having that language around doing that, because as someone who's run a small business and has not worked for corporate America, I haven't been through formal training about behavior change within the workplace, although I know it's an entire field. But for me, it's just so important that small business has access to this knowledge and that women entrepreneurs have access to this knowledge and that it's not just within the gates of large corporations, because
Yeah.
we are nimble and we can change and we are smart. And like we can, when we have language and systems and processes around, you just have a lot more, like, not, small businesses are so honored for being so innovative. And like, here we are being innovative, right? Allowing this nervous system work to come to fruition within our business in a way that supports us. So I feel that it is, there's many different ways. And I think for me, really understanding that behavior change isn't just about your personal life and like choosing to eat differently. It's
Right.
literally, what are the behaviors that you're doing in your business that are either accelerating your business or not accelerating your business. And so for me, that's a big place that I've seen nervous system work to be really supportive.
Yeah, and you have done such a beautiful job with the suite of offers for profit for well-being, where you're really looking at. So I love what you said, and I think it's a beautiful way to wrap up the conversation, which is when you understand this work, it gives you a different sense of what has to be done to be nimble, to be innovative, to shift things, which is it's not just a change in the system, it's not just a change in the SOP, it's not just a change in like who is leading or who is a part of the team. It's about what is the behavior change that needs to happen to best serve the change and the outcomes that we desire within the business, both individually and then, as you said, as a team. And then it begs the question, then you just know what the first question, what's the first step is, am I in a regulated space in order to begin to move toward this change? Do we have, are we as a team in a regulated, are we regulated or dysregulated? What is regulating or dysregulating about this potential change? And so all of a sudden, it it gives us a way to curate a change experience that is not necessarily devoid of difficulty, but can be gracefully managed, right? With respect and with clarity and with this common knowledge of like, oh, I really lost it, earlier. And what I realize is I'm totally dysregulated because of these other things, and I'm not behaving and showing up in the way that I want to for this change experience that we're going through. So it just gives us so much more power to curate these change and growth experiences in a way that actually gets us to where we want to go, but makes us more skillful in the process, which I love so much. All right. Well, if you are interested and curious about bringing polyvagal informed strategies or nervous system based strategies into your business, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to us at the email in the show notes and or ping us on social media, and we'd love to have a chat. For now, we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.